Good morning, options traders. Steve Ganz here. I'm going to share another trade idea with you for the start to finish series. So let me give you the premise for this trade, and then I'll show you how I'm going to use optionstrat to go in and dial in the proposed trade. As always, I recommend trading in paper until someone has a very solid understanding of what they're doing, how they're doing it, etc. So this is a chart of Apple. Sorry, I got that slightly cut off at the top here, but this is a daily chart of Apple. Each bar represents one day. And the thing I want you to notice is that Apple has recently been kind of in a bearish trend. And if I were to draw a trend line here, let me just come in and put in a trend line. We can see that right now Apple is coming right up to this downtrend line. It's running right into it here this morning. Now, there is some news out this morning that Apple is going to possibly strike a deal with Google to use some of the Google AI technology in the iPhone with Siri going forward. So that's what's created this large pop. Now, we also have this flat line here, which I consider to be a resistance area for Apple. And the reason is, Apple rallied up to this and then sold off hard, came up, popped through it. Then when it sold off, it bounced off that line, bounced off that line, bounced off that line, kind of hugged that line for a week and a half, and then finally collapsed through. Usually when you have support in an area like this from a technical standpoint, that becomes resistance on the other side. So I'm right now envisioning that there's going to be some at least short-term resistance in Apple at that 177 to 180 range, let's call it. So if that is my opinion, if I am bearish short-term on Apple, how can I use optionstrat to come in and help me decide a strategy for that? Well, I would use the Optimize tab. So I'll come into Optimize. I've got my symbol in there as Apple. And I'm looking at, again, kind of a short-term trade here because I'm not bearish on Apple long-term. It's had this big rally here this morning based on that news. I don't know if that's going to hold or not, and it is coming into resistance. So this is looking at from my perspective, I'm going to look at this as a very short-term trade, possibly even expiring this Friday or next Friday. So these are the two scenarios that I'm kind of looking at. I'm just going to go with this coming Friday as being the expiration. Now, what is my premise? Am I very bearish? Am I bearish? I'm just going to say bearish. I'm not really very bearish on Apple, but I'm just going to say bearish. So then I'm going to look at these various trades. Well, I could just buy a long put. I mean, that might be a viable trade. But just buying a single long put is going to probably decay out from under me a little bit. So I tend to like to look more at spreads. And if I'm looking at a percent chance of return, we've got a 47% chance here with $115 in risk. I've got more chance here, a 115% return here, slightly more chance, bigger profit potential, and also bigger risk. But I'll tell you, personally, I like broken wing butterflies. They're one of my favorite trades. I usually do them bullish in nature as a put broken wing butterfly, but this one really sets up well for a call broken wing butterfly from my opinion of the market. And the other thing I like about this is that I can come in and I can adjust this to give me more upside room on Apple, for example. I can set this thing up, more along these lines where I'm kind of in the center of my tent here. In other words, this thing could go up more between now and Friday. And yes, I could suffer a little more loss if this short-term loss if this continues to climb, but my break even is going to be all the way out here in this 180 range. Let me just refresh this a second and kind of reconfigure this. So I like this configuration personally right here. Again, my break even is going to be all the way up here in this 180 range. If Apple were to, in fact, really fall back down, I don't have a huge amount of a profit, but at the same time, I don't lose any money if Apple goes to the downside. And here, I've got nice theta decay on this. This thing can decay over the next week. Let's just see what theta looks like here, 20 bucks a day on average. This is a negative delta trade, so I really don't want Apple to go up higher from here. Or if it does go higher, it will show a short-term loss until that thing decays, and then later in the week, it will show into profitability. So that's kind of what I'm looking at on this trade. I do like this setup, and I'm going to go ahead and lock this trade down. Let's just save this as Apple call, broken wing butterfly. I'm going to make a note here. This is bearish trade on Apple pop up on Google News. So, and this is going to be one of the start to finish series. And I'll just save this trade, and then I will share the link down below for everybody so that you can copy this and kind of model it, play with it yourself, watch it yourself. And as always, please give me any information or thoughts below. Like, subscribe, ask some questions. If they're not too detailed, I will attempt to answer them there as well. And that's it for now. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.